You come home to find your 75-year-old grandmother sitting on a porch in freezing weather, clutching nothing but a worn suitcase, locked out of the house she called home for half a century. The people who did this, her own family. But here's the twist, they had no idea what was coming for them. What happened next will restore your faith in karma, and I guarantee you'll be cheering by the end of this story. So grab your coffee, settle in, because this tale of betrayal and brilliant revenge is about to blow your mind. My name's Jordan, and I'm about to tell you how I completely destroyed my own parents to save the woman who raised me. And honestly, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Let me paint you a picture of my childhood. While most kids were being tucked in by mom and dad, I was learning life lessons from my grandparents in their beautiful Victorian house just outside Portland. My parents, they were too busy networking at fancy dinner parties and climbing corporate ladders to bother with actual parenting. Grandpa was this incredible man, a retired history teacher who could tell stories that would make Netflix jealous. And Grandma? She was pure magic. Her apple pies were legendary in the neighborhood, and every Sunday, their dining room became the heart of the community. Everyone felt welcome there. That house wasn't just four walls and a roof. It was love in architectural form. The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls, the sound of Grandpa's old jazz records, the warmth of Grandma's hugs, it was everything a home should be. But life has this cruel way of changing when you're not looking. I moved to Seattle for work, chasing my dreams as a freelance architect. I called my grandparents religiously, but something started feeling off. Grandma's voice would catch when she mentioned my parents. She'd quickly change subjects when I asked about Grandpa's health. Those conversations that used to last hours suddenly became rushed 10-minute check-ins. Now here's where it gets heartbreaking. Grandpa had been seriously sick for months. Cancer. And my loving grandmother kept insisting I shouldn't worry, that I should focus on my career. He'll pull through, she'd say, but I could hear the fear trembling in her voice. The day I found out he died, I didn't hear it from family. I learned about my own grandfather's death through a Facebook post from a neighbor. Can you imagine that gut punch? The people who were supposed to call me first had completely shut me out. I dropped everything and flew home immediately. My heart was pounding the entire flight, and nothing could have prepared me for what I found. The house looked dead. That's the only word for it. The garden Grandma had lovingly tended for decades was now a jungle of weeds. Windows were dark. The cheerful yellow paint was peeling. It looked like hope had packed up and moved away. And then I saw her, my grandmother, this woman who had fed half the neighborhood for 50 years, was sitting alone on the front steps. She had one pathetic suitcase beside her and was wearing a coat that had seen better days. Her hands were red and raw from the cold, and when she looked up at me, I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes, defeat. "Grandma, what's happening?" I asked, rushing to help her stand. She tried to smile, but her whole body was shaking. "Your mother says I need to grieve somewhere else. Says this house belongs to your father now." I felt like someone had just sucker-punched me. "What do you mean?" "The will," she whispered. "Everything went to Craig. The house, the savings, everything. She told me I should have made backup plans." I tried the front door. New locks. I peered through the windows and saw that every single family photo had been replaced. Gone were the pictures of Grandpa's teaching awards, Grandma's garden club certificates, their 50th anniversary celebration. Instead, there were glamour shots of my parents looking like they belonged in a real estate brochure. I walked into that living room and found my mother casually sipping wine like it was happy hour. My father was lounging beside her, checking his expensive watch with this smug expression that made my blood boil. "What is wrong with you people?" I exploded. "You threw Grandma out in the cold." My mother didn't even look up from her wine glass. "The house is legally ours now. James left everything to us in his will. She lived here for 50 years. I shouted. My father actually had the nerve to shrug. "She's not on the deed anymore. We need space for renovations anyway. We're thinking of putting in a wine cellar." "A wine cellar?" They wanted to gut my grandparents' home to store overpriced bottles. That night, I got Grandma settled in a hotel and made her a promise. I'm going to fix this. Whatever it takes. But I wasn't just planning to fix it. Oh no, I was planning to destroy them. See, here's what my parents didn't know about me. As an architect, I'm trained to see the blueprint behind everything. And I was about to build the most beautiful case of revenge you've ever seen. I spent weeks digging through county records, bank statements, safety deposit box logs, anything I could get my hands on. What I discovered made my parents' betrayal even more disgusting. Yes, there was a recent will that left everything to my father. But here's what they missed. I remembered something Grandpa once told me while we were planting vegetables in the garden. He winked and said, "No matter what happens, I've made sure your grandma will always be safe." After digging deeper, I found it. Hidden in a safety deposit box registered only to my grandmother was the original deed to the house, never revoked, with both their names on it. But that wasn't even the best part. Grandpa had secretly set up a trust fund worth nearly $2 million that would activate the moment he died. And there was a handwritten letter to his attorney warning that my parents might try to manipulate him when he was sick and vulnerable. My grandfather had outplayed them from beyond the grave. I contacted the sharpest attorney I could find and filed a lawsuit so quietly, my parents had no idea what was coming. At the same time, I reached out to a real estate agent using a fake identity and made an offer to purchase the house using Grandma's own trust fund. Within 3 weeks, the house legally belonged to Evelyn Turner again. The same house they had heartlessly kicked her out of. Now comes my favorite part of this entire story. I invited my parents over for what I called a family dinner. They strutted in like they owned the place, which technically they thought they did. They started making plans out loud about renovations, talking about tearing down walls and installing marble countertops. Grandma sat quietly at the kitchen table, her hands folded, watching them with eyes that had seen too much. I placed a manila envelope on the table. "What's this?" my father asked, picking it up like it might bite him. "Eviction notice," I said calmly. They laughed. Actually laughed. "Very funny," my mother said. "You can't evict us from our own house." "You're right," I replied. "But Grandma can evict you from hers." I spread out the documents like playing cards. The original deed, the trust paperwork, Grandpa's letter. Everything was legal, airtight, and absolutely devastating. "This house legally belongs to Grandma again. You have 48 hours to pack your things and get out." The color drained from my father's face. "This is impossible. And if you try to fight this," I continued, "we'll add elder abuse, fraud, and emotional distress to the lawsuit. The damages could run into millions." My mother went ballistic. She started screaming, throwing things, calling me ungrateful. My father was frantically making phone calls to lawyers who would later tell him he didn't have a leg to stand on. "You think you can just take everything from us?" my mother shrieked. "No," I said quietly. "You already took everything from Grandma. I'm just giving it back." That night, for the first time in months, my grandmother slept peacefully in her own bed. My parents tried everything. They hired expensive lawyers, filed motion after motion, even tried to claim Grandpa wasn't mentally competent when he set up the trust. But they had nothing. The courts not only upheld every single document, they ordered my parents to pay over $500,000 in damages for acting in bad faith. My parents were forced to sell their summer home, their boat, everything. Their accounts were frozen. Their country club memberships were revoked. Even their fair weather friends disappeared faster than free drinks at a wedding. 3 weeks later, there was a knock on the door. It was early morning, and mist was still clinging to Grandma's newly restored garden. I opened the door to find both my parents on their knees, crying, begging for forgiveness. Grandma appeared beside me. She looked at them for a long moment, these people who had betrayed her trust and left her homeless. "I have nothing to say to you," she said simply. "May God forgive you, because I'm not sure I can." She turned and walked back inside, and I quietly closed the door. We spent the next few months bringing the house back to life. Grandma replanted her garden, and it bloomed more beautifully than ever. She started hosting Sunday dinners again, but this time only for people who truly cared about her. She used part of the trust fund to establish a scholarship in Grandpa's name for students who wanted to become teachers. As for my parents, they moved into a tiny apartment across town. Their phone stopped ringing. Their mailbox stayed empty except for bills. They became exactly what they had tried to make Grandma forgotten. But here's the thing about real revenge. It's not about anger or hatred. It's about restoring balance to the universe. It's about making sure the people who show love and loyalty are protected, while those who choose cruelty face consequences. I moved my architecture firm back to Portland and built a life near the woman who had given me everything. Every morning, I have coffee with Grandma on that same porch where I first found her broken and alone. Every evening, we turn on the porch light, just like Grandpa used to do. Because family isn't about sharing DNA. It's about showing up when someone needs you most. It's about protecting the people who protected you. And sometimes, it's about making sure justice gets served with a side of poetic irony. My grandmother is now 78, still making the best apple pie in 3 counties, and living comfortably in the house she built with love. My parents, well, let's just say Karma has a very long memory and an excellent credit score. If this story taught you anything about standing up for the people who matter most, smash that like button. And if you've got a grandparent or elderly family member who needs protection from toxic relatives, maybe give them a call today. Subscribe for more stories about justice, family drama, and the beautiful moment when good people finally win. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's making sure love conquers cruelty, one restored home at a time. Thanks for watching, and remember, never underestimate the power of a grandparent's love or the determination of someone who refuses to let evil win. See you in the next one.